Great, thanks, Gabby. So welcome, everybody. We'll probably have a few people logging in, and we'll catch them up to speed as we get going. But thank you for joining us. This presentation is for CERT, for RACES, and anybody else in the community who is concerned about what we might be facing this summer and into the fall. Last year, we experienced wildfires up in the North Bay and bad air, public safety power shutoffs, and excessive heat. We had also had fires in this area, the SCU, CZU, and LNU fires. So it looks like it's going to be that way again this coming summer and fall. So we wanted to start a dialogue, a discussion about what CERT teams can do, what RACES people can do, and what just regular citizens can do to try to get prepared for this. We're inviting you to contribute your ideas and thoughts. Please put it in the chat. Gabby and Jeff and I will be monitoring the chat. We'll do our best to address your questions. And if you have a good idea, we may we may put you up there and have you talk about your great idea too. And this is a work in process. We were finalizing these slides as of about a half an hour ago. So as things come up, we do change them. So we are Japantown Prepared. It's a CERT team. We help Japantown prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters. And Jeff, did you have your hand up, sir?
Nope, I was just waving to say I'm part of Japantown Prepared.
Okay. So we've been in existence since 2011. The Fukushima earthquake in Japan. There were community members in Japantown who said, you know, we should be prepared for a disaster like just about the whole country of Japan is. And we didn't have anything in Japantown. So they hit up a couple of retired public safety people, myself as one, and then Jim McClure, who retired from the San Jose Fire Department, who I'm hoping is going to join us here in just a moment. We started this program, and we became affiliated with the Community Emergency Response Team for the City of San Jose, and then I'm also a RACES member. So if you were on just a few minutes ago, we are talking about moving neighborhood level CERT teams to a radio system called General Mobile Radio Service, GMRS. So you'll hear a little bit more about that as we develop that. So for wildfires, you know, as CERT members, we think about a disaster. You think about a earthquake, a flood, a fire, you know, whatever the particular single event is. And based on what we saw last year with the fires, we have what's called either a compound or complex disaster. So we have the fires up north, they shut off the power, there's bad air, we have embers flying around. There's a lot of different things that get rolled into and exacerbate the disaster. As you know, they spread very quickly. They can spread a mile a minute. And with the high winds and the embers, they can spread out, you know, over vast areas. I don't know if anybody was around in 2002, but they were building Santana Row, the shopping center back then. And the construction site caught on fire. The embers, because it was windy, blew across Highway 280 and were setting structures on fire up to a mile away. So that's a local, you know, it's not necessarily a wooded fire, it was a construction site fire. But we have Coyote Creek and Guadalupe River running right down the middle of San Jose, and it's heavily forested, or there's lots of trees up along the riverbanks, and there are a lot of homeless people living in there. So San Jose Fire responds to fires at homeless encampments up and down those two riverbeds on a weekly basis. If you drive from northbound 85 onto northbound 87, if you look down at the backside of Gunderson High School, you're going to see a burn scar there. And it came from the homeless guy who lives up against the fence behind Gunderson High School. So every time I drive up and down Highway 87 from Civic Center down to South San Jose, I smell smoke. And those are people, burning, making fires for either heat or to cook or for whatever. So when we think of wildfires, we don't want to think of just what happened up in the North Bay, Paradise, or the SCU, CZU fires down here. They can actually be in our urban area. So with that, let's go to the next one. If you want to find out where the fires are in the state, Jeff found this wonderful website. It's fire.california.gov/incidents, and it talks about the CAL FIRE fires. So you see there's several going on right now. River Fire, Dixie Fire, Cannon Fire, Dolacini Fire, Dexter Fire, Bradley Fire, Bear Fire. It talks about the size, the containment level, and probably the one that's closest to us is in the North Bay. It's right next to the word San Francisco. So it allows us to keep track of what the wildfires are in our part of the state. Of course, the other thing that goes along with wildfires is bad air. And so Jeff Oldham likes the purpleair.com map, and that's what you're looking at now. Those are individual homeowner sensors, or basically it's ad hoc. So, there are a few outliers in there, like there's one in the middle that is 200. For some reason, that sensor is reading very high. So what you have to do is look at the overall pattern of the smoke. And if you have a wildfire nearby, those numbers across the region will start to increase. So we'll be talking about what Certs and ham radio operators and residents can do when the hazardous air gets to the point where it's unhealthy or unsafe. Did you want anything else, Jeff?
No.
Okay. It's a great resource. So for hazardous air, this is pretty much common sense, but you want to consider sealing your house, all your doors, windows, and vents. And when we talk about vents for hazardous air, we're talking about things that bring air into the inside of your house. So most forced air systems have a vent that pulls air in from outside, both for combustion and to supply the forced air furnace to heat the interior of your house, or for air conditioning. So basically, to seal a house, we recommend the 4-inch wide blue painter's tape. Seal your doors, seal your windows, thresholds across the bottom of the doors, and the vents. Oh, can we go back, please? Yeah. Okay. We recommend that you turn off your heater and air conditioner or set it to recirculate or recycle. Wear an N95 mask when you're outdoors. And thanks to the pandemic, we probably all still have N95 masks. And then if your air gets contaminated inside your living space, one thing you can do is get a 20-inch box fan, which is pictured there. Put a filter up against the inlet side of the fan, turn it on and set it in the middle of your room, and it will pull the particulates out of the air that's inside your building. Okay. So here's a picture of doors and windows, or at least windows taped up. You notice he did it's a casement window, so he did the seam between the upper and lower panes. And you want it in a V shape, so it meets both edges of the door or window. And if you can see daylight, it's not a good thing. You want to make sure you can't see any daylight. Hinges, take more tape. If possible, you want to tape over the hinges, all 4 sides, because there's a gap between the 2 plates. So you want to make sure that that gap is covered up also. So basically you want to cover the whole hinge. Okay, the other thing that comes along with the this time of year and especially the wildfires is excessive heat. So it's good to know the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So basically heat exhaustion is you get very sweaty, you feel dizzy and faint. It talks about the responses to that. Heat stroke is when you stop sweating and basically your body is about to shut down. So if you get to the heat exhaustion stage, you want to start pre-planning your response, which is basically get to a cooler place. If you look at the city of San Jose Office of Emergency Management or the county, they'll have cooling centers listed. You should know where they are. They generally are libraries or community centers spread throughout the city and the county. If you get to heat exhaustion, the next stage is heat stroke. And if you get to that stage where you stop sweating and you get hot, that's an EMS call. That's get yourself to a hospital because your system is about to shut down. Okay. Here's a map of some of the cooling centers that we had recently, the last weekend. If you don't live in an area where there's a cooling center nearby, try to pick out a place where you can go. Maybe a business or some other facility, maybe a relative's house where they have air conditioning. Okay, with that, we're going to talk about, just going to talk about electricity.
So another aspect of when there's a wildfire is that sometimes the electricity stops running in the grid. The last weekend when we had the heat dome over the western U.S., there was the bootleg fire erupted, doubled in size over the weekend, and it shut down 3 major transmission lines taking electricity from Oregon into California. We almost had rolling blackouts in California. The only reasons we didn't were 1, people conserved electricity, and 2, various backup generators were run that required a proclamation by the governor to allow those to run. We were very close to having rolling blackouts. So electricity is something that we use every day. I encourage you to think about all the places that you used electricity today. I know that I woke up, I looked at my clock radio. It requires electricity to keep the time. I walked to the kitchen, it was dark, so I turned the lights on. That required electricity. I had a bowl of oatmeal. I cooked it in the microwave. That requires electricity. Almost everything that I do in my life requires electricity. So think about all those places that you use electricity and what would you do if it stops? Now the next question to ask yourself is, who did you contact today and which of those people required electricity? So yeah, I can do without cooking my bowl of oatmeal, but reaching out to my friends and family and neighbors, I mean, people are the most important things in our lives. So think about all the people that you contacted today and how many of those required electricity. So for example, if I want to reach my parents, I either phone them or I video conference them or I email them. Every single one of those activities requires electricity. I work from home. I can't reach my colleagues without electricity to drive my Wi-Fi router, my computer, my monitor, video conference, email, all requires electricity. I actually did interact with one person in person today in a store, but I couldn't have done that if there wasn't electricity because they would have been shut down if they didn't have electricity running in their store. So think about all those people that you reach that requires electricity, and when the electricity stops, will you be able to reach them? And finally, the most important question to ask is which of those friends and family and neighbors not only do you need electricity to contact, but some of them actually need electricity to live. These are the medically dependent people in your life. So for example, you may know somebody who is on oxygen, and that oxygen, their oxygen pump or oxygen tank requires electricity to run. When the electricity stops, that's not just inconvenient, it could be life-threatening. You may have a CPAP machine, so maybe you won't sleep as well at night. Probably not life-threatening, but it becomes more than just an annoyance. I have a friend who's on dialysis. So dialysis machines, kidney dialysis machines require electricity. When the electricity stops, he probably could get by for 2 or 3 days without dialysis, maybe 4. But after some point, that becomes a critical life-threatening event. Some of us, in fact, probably 2 or 3 of us on this call today are diabetic, and we have insulin that's stored in our refrigerator. If our refrigerator is not running because the electricity is down, suddenly and the inconvenience of, yeah, I can deal without electricity for a little while, 48 hours later, maybe a little bit longer, suddenly it becomes becomes a medical emergency because you need to have some insulin. So think about those people in your life who absolutely need electricity to live. Encourage them to go and sign up for the PG&E Medical Baseline Program. Very strangely named program. If you're medically dependent, if your life depends on electricity in some sort of medical way, you can sign up for the Medical Baseline Program. And they will reach out to you with more outreach on whether there's going to be outages or not. You also, as a nice side benefit, get more electricity at the cheapest rate. There's also the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, which we'll send you a link a little bit later, has some rebates for you to go and buy some equipment to be able to make it through these electrical outages that happen, so that it's not a life-threatening event, but it just becomes more of an annoyance. So what are some of those pieces of equipment that you can have on hand in case the power goes out? Next slide. There we go, an emergency flashlight. So, the power goes out, it's nighttime, I don't want to stumble around, smash my toe into the wall, and then have to go to the urgent care center, right? So I have a bunch of flashlights plugged into my outlets. They have plugs on the back. When the electricity is running, they're charging. And when the electricity stops, they turn on. So first of all, that's my first indication that the power stopped. All these flashlights that I have around the house turn on. So I can grab one and use it as a flashlight so that I can see and move around. They're pretty cheap. They cost between $10 and $20 and make great Christmas gifts. The light in any individual one will only last for 3 or 4 hours, but you can have several of them around the house. I have 4 or 5 of them. So that's enough to get me through the night. Even if I'm going to stay up the entire night, that's enough to get me through. I also use them as night lights, which is a nice side effect. So that's going to help me if it's dark or I want to go see someplace. But if I want to get some communication, like what's happening with that outage, good old-fashioned radio is a good place to get information. I have a hand crank radio here. You see the picture of it on the slides. It has a crank on the back. You wind it up. I wind it up for 1 minute. I get about 20 minutes worth of radio, which is a good, I can go find out about the wildfire that's causing it, or the storm that's causing it. This one actually has a solar panel on it to help charge it. It has a flashlight, and I might just want to get some entertainment from the radio when the power is out. Some of them will actually also charge your mobile phone, but that's going to require a lot of cranking. $20 gets you a hand crank radio. You can spend up to $40. It's good to have on hand. Now, both of those are just help you individually as you're walking around your dark house, your dark home. Go find it, not stumble into the walls and find out what's happening. What if you want to turn your refrigerator back on? Generator's the way to go. There's a picture of a yellow generator there. So your car has an engine in it, and that engine converts gasoline and moves your car forward. A generator takes gasoline and generates electricity. So what you can do is you set this up far enough away from your home so that the exhaust fumes don't get to you. And the easiest way is to plug a heavy-duty extension cord that you bought in advance into the generator, and then you run that into your house into multiple outlets, where you can go plug your refrigerator, maybe you plug your Wi-Fi router and a light or two, mobile phone charger, and you can run your generator to go and generate electricity for them. About 1 gallon of gasoline lasts for between 1 and 2 hours. So you're going to have quite a bit of gasoline on hand if you're going to last for any period of time. Some of them also will burn propane. A few of them will even take in natural gas, but typically you have to have some plumbing done if you're going to hook them up to natural gas. Now, I mentioned having a heavy-duty extension cord to go connect your generator, which is outside, far from the house, into your house. What if you want to turn your ceiling fan on, or if it's a wintertime, turn your furnace on, and if it requires some electricity, or or the lights in your ceiling? To do that, you'll instead need to connect your generator directly into your electrical panel. To do that, you need to have a transfer switch installed in advance. It's going to cost you at least $500 to get this transfer switch installed. That's in addition to the cost of the generator. You can plug your generator directly into your circuit breaker panel, so that you can run all those things inside your house, including the lights in your ceiling and so on. Now, generators require maintenance. They require monthly maintenance. You should plan 20 to 30 minutes of maintenance every month. And as I said, they also require fuel. You're not going to be able to buy fuel when the power goes out. For example, gas pumps don't work when the electricity doesn't work. So you can't go buy more gasoline. So that's going to be your cheapest whole house solution. $500 is enough to get you started on a generator, but again, you're going to have to go buy a heavy-duty extension cord or the transfer switch to connect it to your appliances in your house. Some of us have backup home batteries. These are basically giant lithium-ion batteries. Tesla Powerwall is one example of that. You install these in advance. They turn on automatically. There's absolutely no maintenance, unlike the gasoline and propane generators. But boy, are they expensive. $14,000 is the smallest price you can pay to get started with one of these backup batteries. It'll last overnight. Probably last, if you work on it, it'll last an entire day of electrical use. But you probably want to actually pair it with solar panels to recharge it, hoping that the sun is shining when your electricity is down. Solar panels will cost you another $10,000 or maybe $14,000. So now we're talking $25,000 to get the entire package. That's a little pricey for most of us. If your life is dependent on electricity, then that's something you should consider. Generators are really the way to go for the cheaper solution if you want to run the electricity in your home. Back to you, Rich.
Hey, thank you. At the beginning, we talked about the difference between a wildfire, a rural wildfire, and now let's talk about an urban wildfire. I mentioned the creeks, the Guadalupe River and the Coyote Creek, heavily wooded, the homeless people living in there. And when they set those on fire, which they do on a weekly basis, if it's windy, again, the embers, which could be up to the size of tan bark, so an inch by a half an inch, can travel for up to a mile. So there's an excellent video, which I'm going to put in the chat.
I'll get it, Rich.
Yeah, I want to thank Jeff Hare for sending it to us. There it is. So please copy that, look at it. It's about 45 minutes. It's an excellent video about how to protect your home from an urban wildfire. Probably the three main things are, first of all, reduce fuel. So if you look at the diagram on the right of the picture, there's 3 zones there. The red zone is everything within 5 feet. You should have no flammable material, no tan bark, no bushes, no trees, no wood structures, anything within 5 feet of the perimeter of your building. Between 5 feet and 30 feet, you want to reduce the amount of flammable material. It's kind of hard when you have decks or overhead shelters for your backyard, but you want to think about, those things going up in flames. What can you do to make them more fire retardant or eliminate them altogether? You also want to have your landscaping spread out. If you have trees within the 30 feet, you want to raise the canopy so that if the shrubs catch on fire, they don't ignite the canopy of the tree. And then from 30 feet on out to your lot line, all the way out to your perimeter fence, again, you want to space out the trees. Don't put them right up against each other so the fire can't transfer from tree to tree. If you have shrubs underneath the trees, either trim them down or take them out. And any other fuel type material, play sets, fencing, decks, gazebos, anything like that, you want to think about how they catch on fire and try to prevent them from becoming fuel. The other thing you might want to consider doing is sealing up your building. So when you think about your building, you want to think from the crest of the roof all the way down to the foundation. So if you're starting at the roof, if you don't have either asphalt shingle or ceramic tile roofs or a metal roof, if you have wood shake or something combustible, you want to think about replacing it. And that's what happened during the Santana Row fire, is just about all of those living structures that caught fire had shake roofs, either thin shake or the heavy shake roofs. The edge of the roof where the eaves come out, the embers can get underneath those, and they can set the underlayment underneath the wood shingles, underneath the shingles on fire, and then it gets the wood structure under the eaves. The side of the building, all the way down, you can have one of two different types of foundation. If you have a pier foundation, you're going to have vents just along the bottom of the wall spread out across the whole structure, and it's designed to provide ventilation for the pier foundation underneath your home. When it gets hot inside there, the heat rises and it can draw air in on one side and put it out the other side. If there are embers floating around, if you don't have the proper type mesh, the embers will go into that area and it sets everything that's in your pier foundation on fire. Conversely, if you have a slab foundation, your eaves are going to have vents up just underneath the roof line. Again, when it gets hot up in the attic, the air goes up through your gable vents or your roof vents, and it sucks the air in through these eave vents, and it will draw burning embers inside. So in the picture, you see the 1/8 inch mesh, and I actually have one here. Just got it today, $4.48. But it's 1/8 inch mesh. It's small enough that it will let the air pass through, but it really restricts the ability of the embers to go into the interior structure. So you want to think about the whole building. The third thing that Jeff's excellent video suggests is be prepared to spray your whole lot. So this company sells these oscillating sprinklers. You put them on the crest of your roof and it goes around and around and around, and it can spray out to 20, 25 feet. If you don't have one of those, what you want to be prepared to do is have someone in the front yard and someone in the backyard with a hose, and about every 20 minutes spray down the whole lot from the crest of your roof, the side of your building, all the plants, all the wood structures, and everything out to the fence line. And ideally, you want to have your neighbor do the same thing on his side, his or her side of the fence. It does no good if their landscaping or their deck or their structure catches on fire, and then it's going to come right over to yours. Okay, any questions about that? Please put it in the chat. So reduce fuel, seal up your building, and be prepared to spray down the whole building. If you have a fire that goes overnight, it's going to be a long night, but it's better than losing your home. Thanks, Gabby. So I just wanted to talk about Certs a little bit. As we approach the fire season and these compound and complex fires, as a CERT team, what we recommend that you do is identify the areas in your neighborhood that are most vulnerable and start to prepare them for these things. You want to think about how they can prepare for fire, heat, hazardous or bad air, and a public safety power shutoff or rolling blackouts. In Japantown, we've done that during the bad air. We flyered our community about how to seal buildings, turn off the air conditioning, wear a mask, and escape to cleaner places. So if you decide to do that for your neighborhood, that's part of the preparation stuff. Make up these flyers, pass them out, and have public safety meetings with your neighbors. If it actually happens, if you're in the middle of an event like this, a compound disaster, what we suggest you do as a CERT team is divide your neighborhood up into blocks. Get your block captains, like Jeff Hare has block captains set up for Negley Park, and each person goes door to door and says, "Hey, we're in the middle of this compound disaster. Get out there and spray down your house. Watch out for your neighbor's house. Seal up your doors and windows. Be aware of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. And if necessary, if you feel like you're at risk, evacuate. If you have alternate electrical power systems, hook up your generator, use your Generac, turn on your Tesla Powerwall or whatever it is that you have. Check on your neighbors, especially the medical baseline neighbors, and then monitor your local radio station for info. So that's prepare for, respond to, and then if you have the opportunity afterwards, you can do an after action report or a debriefing and talk about with your neighbors about what went well and what needs improvement and how you can get them to join in your initiative. So finally, we'd like to wrap up before we take questions with our social media. Thanks to Gabby. Thank you, Gabby, for all the work you've done on this. We not only did she really do the great job with our slides, and Professor Jan English Luck too, but we have now some social media platforms. So we have a Twitter account, a Facebook account, and an Instagram account. I don't know exactly what's on there yet. I'm still putting content in there, but they are out there. And again, thanks to Gabby, we have some very current stuff.
And a webpage.
And a webpage, yes, japantownprepared.org, the bottom.